What happens when a legendary icon refuses to play nice on live television? What happens when years of unspoken tension finally explode in front of millions of viewers? Today, we're breaking down one of the most shocking moments in daytime talk show history, when Patti Labelle completely lost it on The View. And trust me, you need to hear every single word of this exchange. Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on, because this one is going to divide opinions. Now, let's get into what really went down. The View's panel was in full swing, discussing the evolution of the music industry and how veteran artists are being treated in the modern era. Patti Labelle sat center stage, initially calm and composed as the conversation started off innocently enough. Whoopi Goldberg opened the discussion by praising Patti's decades-long career and her impact on multiple generations of performers. The audience applauded warmly, and for a moment it seemed like this would be just another celebratory interview honoring a music legend. But then Behar jumped in with a question that immediately shifted the energy in the room. Joy leaned forward and said, "Patti, I have to ask. There's been some talk about your recent performances and whether vocalists of a certain age should maybe consider stepping back from the spotlight. What do you think about that conversation?" The studio went quiet. You could feel the tension instantly. Patti's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she responded. "Joy, are you asking me if I think I should retire? Because that's what it sounds like you're asking me." Joy quickly tried to backtrack, her hands going up defensively. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm asking about the broader conversation in the industry, about preservation of legacy and all that." Patti wasn't buying it. She tilted her head slightly and said, "Preservation of legacy. So, you think the best way for me to preserve my legacy is to disappear? To stop doing what I've done my entire life? Joy, I've been performing since before you had your first talk show gig, and I'll probably still be performing long after this show is off the air." The audience gasped. Sunny host's eyes widened, and even Sarah Haynes looked uncomfortable. Whoopi tried to interject with, "Ladies, let's keep this respectful," but Joy wasn't ready to let it go. Joy's voice took on a defensive edge. "Patti, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to say here. I'm talking about the reality of the industry. Younger artists are taking over. Streaming has changed everything. And sometimes it's okay to acknowledge that times have changed." Patti leaned back in her chair, her expression hardening. "Oh, so now you're going to educate me about the music industry. Joy, with all due respect, what exactly is your qualification to tell me about my business? You sit behind this desk and talk about everyone else's career, but what have you built? What have you created that's lasted 50 years? The panel froze. This was going further than anyone expected. Joy's face flushed as she stammered, "I'm a comedian and a talk show host. I've had a successful career." Patti cut her off. "A successful career? Talking about other people's successful careers. That's cute, Joy. Real cute. But don't sit here and suggest that I need to step aside because you think younger artists are more relevant. I taught half these young singers how to hold a microphone properly." Alyssa Farah Griffin attempted to redirect the conversation. "Patti, I think what Joy might be trying to explore is how artists navigate changing times. Your career has been incredible and nobody's questioning that." Patti turned to Alyssa with a look that could freeze fire. "Sweetheart, I appreciate you trying to smooth this over, but let's call it what it is. Joy just suggested on national television that I'm too old to be doing what I do. She wrapped it up in pretty language about preservation and legacy, but that's what she meant." Joy's frustration was now clearly visible. "You know what, Patti? Maybe if you weren't so defensive, you'd actually hear what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to have a real conversation about age in the entertainment industry, and you're making this personal." Patti's voice rose slightly. "You made it personal when you decided to use me as your example. You could have asked me about my new projects, my upcoming tour, the young artists I'm mentoring, but instead you wanted to ask if I should retire. Don't act like I'm the one who took this there." Whoopi tried again to regain control. "Okay, I think we need to take a breath here and remember we're all friends at this table." Patti turned sharply to Whoopi. "Are we though? Are we friends? Because friends don't ambush each other on live television with retirement questions. Friends don't imply that your time is up." Joy threw her hands up. "This is ridiculous. I was asking a legitimate industry question. If you can't handle a tough question, maybe talk shows aren't the place for you." The audience audibly reacted to that comment. Patti stood up slightly in her seat, and for a moment, everyone thought she might walk off. Instead, she locked eyes with Joy and said, "If I can't handle tough questions, Joy, I've survived the music industry for over 5 decades. I've dealt with record executives who tried to control everything I did. I've performed through personal tragedies. I've watched friends die and kept singing. You think your little question about retirement is tough? You don't know the meaning of tough." Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Sunny was shaking her head slowly. The commercial break couldn't come fast enough, but the cameras were still rolling and neither woman was backing down. Joy's voice dropped to a colder tone. "You know what, Patti? The defensiveness is really telling. Maybe there's a reason that question hit a nerve." Patti laughed, but there was no humor in it. Hit a nerve? No, Joy. What hit a nerve is watching someone who's never created anything meaningful try to tell creators when it's time to stop. You want to talk about age and relevance? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this show keeps trying to stay relevant by creating controversy instead of having real conversations. Whoopi finally raised her voice. "All right, we're going to take a break. We need to cool down here." But Patti wasn't finished. Before they could cut to commercial, she said, "No, let's finish this conversation." "Whoopi." Joy started it. "So, let's see it through. Joy, you want to know what I think about aging in the industry? I think it's women like you who perpetuate the problem by suggesting women, like me, should disappear once we hit a certain age. You're doing the industry's dirty work for them." The tension was suffocating as the show finally cut to commercial. When the show returned from commercial, the atmosphere was electric. The producers clearly had words with everyone during the break, but the damage was done. Patti Labelle sat with her arms crossed, her jaw set in determination. Joy Behar looked equally unmoved, her expression tight. Whoopi tried to restart with a lighter topic, but Patti immediately interrupted. "We're not moving on, Whoopi. Joy made an accusation right before the break, and I want her to explain what she meant. What exactly was telling about my defensiveness? Joy, please enlighten all of us." Joy shifted in her seat. "Patti, I think you proved my point. A simple question about the industry turned into this whole thing because you took it personally." Patti leaned forward. "It was personal. You made it personal when you looked at me. A woman who has given everything to her craft and essentially asked if I should quit. How else am I supposed to take that? You didn't ask me that question in a vacuum. Joy, you asked me specifically on live television in front of millions of people." Sunny host finally spoke up, clearly trying to find middle ground. "Can I just say something here? I think maybe we're talking past each other. Joy, maybe your question could have been phrased differently. And Patti, maybe Joy didn't mean it the way it came across." Patti turned to Sunny with a look that silenced her immediately. "Sunny, I love you, but don't do that. Don't try to make this about miscommunication." Joy knew exactly what she was asking. She's been in this business long enough to know how to ask a question. That wasn't an accident. Joy's voice rose again. "You're absolutely right. It wasn't an accident. I asked a question that plenty of people are wondering about. The music industry is youth-obsessed now, and veteran artists are struggling to find their place. That's not controversial. That's reality." Patti's eyes flashed. "Struggling to find their place. I just sold out Radio City Music Hall. I have a residency in Vegas that's been extended twice. My social media following grows every single day. Where exactly am I struggling, Joy? Or are you projecting your own fears about aging onto me?" The audience made an audible sound at that comment. Joy's mouth opened in shock. Alyssa Farah Griffin put her hand over her mouth. Even Whoopi looked stunned. Joy recovered quickly, her voice sharp. "That's a low blow, Patti. Really low." Patti didn't flinch. "Is it? You want to talk about low blows? You invited me on this show under the pretense of celebrating my career, and instead you tried to push me into admitting I should retire. That's the low blow. Don't dish it out if you can't take it." Sarah Haynes tried to intervene. "Maybe we can talk about Patti's upcoming projects instead. I know you have some exciting things happening." Patti held up her hand. "I appreciate that, Sarah, but I'm not interested in moving past this until Joy acknowledges what she did. This isn't just about me. This is about every woman over 50 in entertainment who gets asked these kinds of questions. Do you think anyone's asking MC Jagger if he should retire? Is anyone telling Paul McCartney he's too old to perform? But women, we get pushed out the door the minute we're not considered desirable anymore." Joy jumped on that. "Now you're making this about sexism. This has nothing to do with that." Patti's voice was incredulous. "It has everything to do with that. You think it's a coincidence that veteran male artists get called legends and icons, but women my age get asked about retirement? Wake up, Joy. You're part of the problem. Whoopi finally stepped in with authority. Okay, I'm going to say something here, and both of you need to listen. Patti, I understand your frustration. I do. But Joy, I also think you need to hear what Patti's saying. That question did come across as dismissive, whether you meant it that way or not. Joy turned to Whoopi with disbelief. You're taking her side. Whoopi shook her head. I'm not taking sides. I'm trying to help you see how your question landed. As women in this industry, we have to be careful about how we talk about age. We all know the double standard exists. Joy's frustration was palpable. Fine. I'm sorry if my question offended you, Patti. That wasn't my intention. Patti stared at her. If it offended me, Joy, there's no if about it. You sat here and suggested I'm past my prime on national television. That's not a misunderstanding. That's disrespect. Joy's face hardened. You know what? I tried to apologize. I tried to be gracious, but clearly you're determined to make me the villain here. Patti stood her ground. You made yourself the villain when you decided to use your platform to tear down another woman instead of building her up. You had a choice in how to approach this conversation, and you chose to go negative. Sunny spoke up again, her lawyer voice coming through. I think what's happening here is a generational conversation that a lot of industries are having. But Patti's right that women bear the brunt of these conversations in a way men don't. Joy interrupted. I never said men don't face these questions too. Patti laughed sharply. Show me. Show me. One interview in the last year where a male artist over 60 was asked if he should retire. I'll wait. The silence was deafening. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it again. She couldn't come up with an example. Patti continued. That's what I thought. You can't because it doesn't happen. Men get to age gracefully in this industry. Women get asked when we're going to step aside. And women like you, Joy. Women who have platforms and influence. You should be fighting against that, not perpetuating it. Alyssa spoke softly. That's actually a really powerful point. Joy snapped. Oh, so now everyone's ganging up. On me. This is great. I ask one question, and suddenly I'm the enemy of feminism. Patti's voice was calm but firm. Nobody said you're the enemy of feminism. Joy, I'm saying you made a choice to ask me a question that undermines women in entertainment. You can either own that and learn from it, or you can keep playing the victim. Your choice. Joy stood up, and for a moment it looked like she might walk off the set, but instead she pointed at Patti. You don't get to come on this show and lecture me about feminism. You don't get to tell me what I should or shouldn't ask. Patti stood up too. And you don't get to tell me when my career should end. You don't get to decide when I've had enough. That's my decision, not yours, not the industry's, not anyone else's. Whoopi stood up between them. Okay, we need to take another break. This is getting out of hand. But Joy wasn't done. She looked directly at Patti and said, maybe the reason you're so sensitive about this is because deep down, you know there's some truth to what I'm saying. The gasp from the audience was audible. Patti's face transformed. Her composure, which had been hanging by a thread, completely shattered. She took a step toward Joy and security actually moved closer to the set. Patti's voice was low and dangerous. You want to go there? You really want to go there right now? Joy crossed her arms. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Patti's next words came out in a rush. What everyone's thinking. Let me tell you what everyone's actually thinking, Joy. Everyone's thinking about how you've built your entire career on being controversial and rude. Everyone's thinking about how you hide behind comedy to say cruel things. Everyone's thinking that maybe it's time for you to show some respect to the people who paved the way for shows like this to even exist. The studio was in complete chaos now. Whoopi physically stepped between Patti and Joy, her hands raised. Both of you need to sit down right now. We are on live television, and this has gone far enough. Joy pointed past Whoopi at Patti. She just attacked my entire career. You heard her. She doesn't get to do that without consequences. Patti didn't back down an inch. Consequences. You started this, Joy. You came for me first, and now you can't handle me defending myself. That's rich. Sunny stood up too, joining Whoopi and trying to create physical space between the two women. Ladies, please. We can have this conversation sitting down like professionals. Patti looked at Sunny with exasperation. Professionals. Joy stopped being professional the second she decided to ambush me with that retirement question. I'm just matching her energy. Sarah Haynes was visibly shaking. Can we please just take a breath, all of us? Joy finally sat back down, but her body language was still aggressive. Fine, I'll sit. But I'm not apologizing for asking a legitimate question about the state of the industry. Patti remained standing for a moment longer, then slowly lowered herself back into her chair. She looked directly into the camera and said, "Let me say something to everyone watching at home. If you are a woman over 50, if you are someone who has been told you're too old, too outdated, too irrelevant, don't you dare believe it. Don't let anyone, and I mean anyone, tell you when your time is up. Only you get to decide that." The audience erupted in applause. It was the first genuine unified response since the conflict began. Joy sat stone-faced, clearly unhappy with the reaction Patti was receiving. Alyssa seized the moment. "That's beautiful, Patti. And I think that message resonates with so many people, not just in entertainment, but in every field." Patti nodded, her eyes still on the camera. "I've spent my entire life fighting for my place in this industry, fighting to be heard, fighting to be respected, fighting to be paid what I'm worth. And at 79 years old, I'm still fighting. Not because I have to, but because I refuse to let anyone silence me before I'm ready to be silent." Joy couldn't help herself. "See, that's the thing, though. You say you're fighting, but at what point does the fight become more exhausting than it's worth? At what point do you step back and let the next generation have their moment?" Patti turned slowly to look at Joy. "Their moment. Joy, there is room for multiple generations to exist simultaneously. This isn't a zero-sum game. Me being on stage doesn't take anything away from younger artists. If anything, I elevate them. I mentor them. I teach them. What exactly do you think I'm taking from the next generation? By continuing to perform." Joy struggled for an answer. "I'm not saying you're taking anything. I'm saying that the industry has limited spots, limited attention, and maybe it's time for a changing of the guard." Patti's laugh was bitter. "Limited spots, limited attention, Joy. That's the scarcity mindset that keeps women fighting each other instead of fighting the system. There are unlimited spots if we create them. There's unlimited attention if we demand it. But you're sitting here acting like my existence is a problem for younger artists, and that's exactly the narrative the industry wants us to believe." Whoopi nodded slowly. "She's not wrong about that. We do get pitted against each other when we should be supporting each other across generations." Joy turned to Whoopi with frustration. "So now you're definitely taking her side." Whoopi's voice was firm. "I'm taking the side of truth, Joy. And the truth is that Patti has a point. We don't ask men to step aside for the next generation. We celebrate them for their longevity. Why should it be different for women?" Joy threw her hands up. "Because the music industry is different. It's about youth and energy and current trends." Patti cut in sharply. "Music is about talent, emotion, and connection. Those things don't have an expiration date. You think people come to my shows because I'm young? They come because I can still deliver a performance that moves them. They come because I have 50 years of experience pouring into every note I sing. You can't replace that with youth, Joy. You just can't." Sunny added her voice. "And honestly, some of the most successful tours in recent years have been from veteran artists. The Rolling Stones, Elton. John, Madonna. People want to see legends." Joy's response was defensive. "Those are different circumstances. Those are iconic acts." Patti's eyebrows shot up. "And what am I, Joy? Am I not iconic? Is Lady Marmalade not iconic? Is New Attitude not iconic? What exactly do I have to do to earn the same respect you're giving to male artists?" The question hung in the air. Joy looked genuinely uncomfortable now, realizing she'd backed herself into a corner. Alyssa spoke gently. "I think maybe that's the core issue here. There does seem to be a different standard being applied." Joy's voice was quieter now, but still stubborn. "I didn't mean it that way." Patti leaned forward, "But that's how it came out. And that matters. Your intentions don't erase the impact of your words. You asked me on live television if I should retire. You questioned my relevance. You suggested my time is up. Those words have consequences. Joy. They affect how people see me, how the industry treats me, how opportunities come or don't come my way." Sarah finally found her voice. "That's actually a really important point about the power of media narratives." Patti continued. "Every time someone with a platform like yours suggests that artists my age should step back, it reinforces ageism. It makes promoters think twice about booking us. It makes labels hesitant to work with us. It makes younger audiences think we're not worth their time. Your words matter, Joy, whether you want them to or not." Joy was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost some of its edge. "I hear what you're saying." Patti waited and Joy took a breath. "And I could have phrased my question better. I could have approached this conversation differently. Patty's expression didn't soften. That's still not an apology. Joy looked directly at Patti. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way I asked that question, and I'm sorry for not considering how it would affect you. You deserve better than that. The studio was quiet. Patti studied Joy's face, looking for sincerity. After what felt like an eternity, she nodded slowly. Thank you. That's all I wanted. Acknowledgement and respect. Whoopi exhaled audibly. Okay, now can we please have a civil conversation about Patty's actual work? Patti smiled for the first time since the confrontation began. I would love that. Sarah jumped in eagerly. So, tell us about your upcoming tour. I heard you're doing something special. Patty's whole demeanor changed as she started talking about her music. I'm actually collaborating with several younger artists on this tour. We're blending classic soul with contemporary sounds. It's about showing that music transcends generations when you focus on quality and authenticity. Alyssa asked, who are some of the younger artists you're working with? Patti listed several names, talking enthusiastically about their talent and potential. This is what I'm talking about when I say there's room for everyone. These young artists aren't threatened by me, and I'm not threatened by them. We're learning from each other, creating together, and making something beautiful. Joy, to her credit, asked a genuine question. What do you think younger artists can learn from your generation? Patti thought for a moment. Endurance. Not just vocal endurance, but career endurance. How to navigate this industry without losing yourself. How to handle rejection, criticism, changing trends. How to stay true to your artistry, even when people tell you to compromise. Those lessons don't come from a textbook. They come from lived experience. Sunany asked, and what have you learned from younger artists? Patti smiled. Everything. They've taught me about new technology, new ways to connect with audiences, new sounds and production techniques. They keep me current without making me feel like I have to abandon who I am. That's the beauty of intergenerational collaboration. The conversation continued in this vein for several more minutes. Genuinely productive and insightful. Joy even asked thoughtful questions, though the tension never fully dissipated. When Whoopi finally moved to wrap the segment, Patti looked directly at the camera one more time. To anyone watching who felt hurt by the earlier part of this conversation, I want you to know that your value doesn't diminish with age. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's limited perspective. Keep creating. Keep performing. Keep being who you are for as long as you want to be that person. Nobody gets to write your ending but you. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Even Joy stood and clapped, though her smile was tight. As the show moved to commercial, Patti gathered her things with dignity, having made her point unmistakably clear. So there you have it. One of the most intense confrontations in daytime television history, where Patti Labelle refused to back down and forced a real conversation about ageism and respect. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. Whose side are you on in this clash? And do you think Joy's question was out of line or fair? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Before we wrap this up, it's important to clarify something for viewers. This storyline is a dramatized, entertainment-based narrative created for storytelling purposes only. Any resemblance to real events, interviews, or actual statements is purely coincidental. This content is not a verified transcript or real broadcast record, and it should be viewed as creative commentary meant for engagement and discussion only. The goal here is to explore ideas like generational conflict, respect in the entertainment industry, and public discourse, not to represent real-life individuals or actual incidents. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more engaging breakdowns and storytelling content.